Imagine a land with towering mountains, deep green jungles, and ancient cities made of gold and stone. Long before ships arrived from across the ocean, millions of people lived here. They mapped the stars in the night sky. They built giant pyramids. They grew foods that changed the entire world. But this world was about to change forever. This is a story of great power, terrible loss, and amazing survival. This is the incredible history of a place we now call Latin America. What is Latin America? Today, Latin America is a very large region. A region is an area of land that has common features. It includes Mexico, Central America, South America, and some islands in the Caribbean Sea. Most people here speak Spanish or Portuguese. These languages come from Latin. That is why it is called Latin America. But the story of this land begins long before the Spanish and Portuguese languages arrived. It begins with the indigenous people. Indigenous means the first or original people to live in a place. Thousands of years ago, the first humans arrived in the Americas. They walked across a bridge of ice from Asia. Slowly, they moved south. They discovered beautiful lands. They found high mountains, vast deserts, and deep rainforests. The people learned to live in harmony with nature. They learned to farm. They grew corn, beans, potatoes, and tomatoes. These foods did not exist anywhere else in the world at that time. Over time, some groups built great civilizations. A civilization is a large, advanced human society with its own government, culture, and science. One of the greatest was the Maya. The Maya lived in the jungles of Central America. They were amazing builders and scientists. They built huge stone pyramids without metal tools. They watched the sun, the moon, and the stars. They created a very accurate calendar. They also had their own system of writing. Further north, in modern-day Mexico, the Aztecs rose to power. They built a massive empire. An empire is a large group of countries or regions ruled by a single powerful leader. The Aztecs built their capital city in the middle of a large lake. The city was called Tenochtitlan. It was bigger and cleaner than most cities in Europe at the time. It had busy markets, clean water, and grand temples. The Aztecs were fierce warriors, but they also loved poetry and art. Far to the south, high in the Andes Mountains, lived the Inca. The Inca also built a huge empire. Their empire stretched for thousands of miles. The mountains were very steep, so farming was difficult. The Inca solved this by building terraces. Terraces are flat areas cut out of a mountain, like giant green stairs used for growing crops. The Inca also built thousands of miles of roads. These stone roads connected their vast empire, allowing runners to carry messages quickly from one city to another. For thousands of years, the people of the Americas did not know about Europe, Africa, or Asia, and the rest of the world did not know about the Americas. But in the year 1492, everything changed. A man named Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. He was looking for Asia, but he found the Americas instead. Soon, more ships followed. They came from Spain and Portugal. These men were called conquistadors. A conquistador is a soldier and explorer who takes control of a new land by force. The Europeans wanted gold, silver, and new land. They brought horses, metal armor, and powerful guns. The indigenous people had never seen these things before. But the Europeans brought something much worse than weapons. They brought diseases. A disease is a sickness or illness. The Europeans carried sicknesses like smallpox. The indigenous people had no immunity. Immunity is the body's natural ability to fight off a sickness. Because they had no immunity, millions of native people died. The great Aztec and Inca empires were defeated. A new, difficult era was about to begin. After the conquest, Spain and Portugal created colonies. A colony is an area of land controlled by a different, more powerful country. The Europeans took the land and the wealth. They found mountains full of silver and rivers full of gold. They sent this treasure back to Europe on huge ships. The European kings grew very rich. But the indigenous people lost their homes and their freedom. They were forced to work in deep, dark mines and on large farms. During this time, a new society was born. European men married indigenous women. Their children were called mestizos. A mestizo is a person who has both European and indigenous ancestors. Slowly, the cultures began to mix. They mixed their food, their music, and their beliefs. They built beautiful cities with large European churches. But life was not fair. The people born in Europe had all the power. The mestizos and indigenous people had very few rights. Because millions of native people died from disease and hard work, the Europeans needed more workers. They started a terrible practice. They sailed to Africa, captured millions of men and women, and brought them to the Americas in chains. This was the beginning of slavery. Slavery is a cruel system where one person owns another person and forces them to work without pay. The enslaved Africans worked on giant sugar and coffee farms, especially in Brazil and the Caribbean. Despite their deep suffering, the African people survived. They brought beautiful rhythms, new religions, and great strength to Latin America. For almost 300 years, Spain and Portugal ruled Latin America. But things began to change in the late 1700s. People read new books from Europe. These books talked about freedom and equal rights. Then, the people of the United States fought a war to become free from England. Next, the people of France rebelled against their king. A rebellion is when people fight against the government in power. The people of Latin America watched. They thought, if they can be free, we can be free too. The fight for freedom started in many places. In the year 1810, a brave priest named Miguel Hidalgo stood up in Mexico. He rang his church bell. He called the poor people to fight for their land. This famous moment is called the Cry of Dolores. Hidalgo was later captured and killed, but the fight continued. The ordinary people, farmers, indigenous people, and mestizos formed armies. They were tired of giving their wealth to Spain. They wanted to rule themselves. In South America, a man named Simón Bolívar became a great leader. He is known as the Liberator. A liberator is a person who fights to set others free. Bolívar was a rich man, but he gave his life to the revolution. A revolution is a sudden and complete change in government, usually by force. Bolívar led his army over the freezing Andes Mountains. It was an impossible journey. Many soldiers died in the cold, but they survived, surprised the Spanish army, and won a great battle. Bolívar helped free modern-day Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Bolivia. Further south, another great general named José de San Martín fought the Spanish in Argentina and Chile. Step by step, the Spanish armies were defeated. Brazil also gained its independence from Portugal, mostly without a war. By the year 1825, most of Latin America was finally free. However, freedom was not easy. The new countries were poor. The wars had destroyed farms and cities. The leaders argued about how to rule the new nations. They had won their independence, but the struggle to build peaceful, successful countries was just beginning. After the Spanish left, the new countries of Latin America had to build governments. But it was a difficult time. The generals who won the wars often took control. Many of them became dictators. A dictator is a ruler who has total power and often keeps control by using force. They did not listen to the people. There were many smaller wars between countries over land and borders. For many years, the dream of freedom felt lost. The rich landowners became richer, while the poor farmers stayed poor. In the late 1800s and 1900s, new powers arrived. European countries and the United States became very interested in Latin America. They wanted coffee, sugar, bananas, and oil. They built large companies. Often they used their power to control the local governments. This is called influence. Influence is the power to change how another country acts. Sometimes foreign armies even entered Latin American countries to protect their businesses. The people felt they had traded Spanish kings for foreign companies. Because life was still very hard for the poor, new struggles began in the 20th century. People organized strikes and protest. In some countries, like Mexico and later Cuba, there were major revolutions. The people fought for reform. Reform means to change a system to make it better and fairer. The ordinary people wanted schools, hospitals, and a voice in their government. These struggles were painful and sometimes violent, but they changed society forever. Despite the wars and struggles, something beautiful grew in Latin America. It was its culture. The mixing of indigenous, European, and African roots created a powerful heritage. Heritage is the traditions, art, and beliefs passed down from older generations. Latin America gave the world incredible music, like the tango, samba, and salsa. Writers from Latin America won global awards for their magical stories. Artists painted huge, colorful walls to tell the history of the people. Through art, the people found their voice. Today, Latin America is a place of massive modern cities like Sao Paulo, Mexico City, and Buenos Aires. It is home to the Amazon rainforest, the lungs of our planet. The countries are democracies now, where people vote for their leaders. However, big challenges remain. The biggest problem is inequality. Inequality happens when a small group of people has a lot of money and a large group has very little. But the modern generations are working hard to build a fairer future. They are educated, proud, and looking forward. The history of Latin America is a story of incredible survival. The indigenous empires fell, but their blood and languages still live on today. The enslaved Africans suffered terribly, but their spirit beats in the heart of Latin American culture. The Spanish and Portuguese brought war, but they also brought a language that now unites millions. Out of deep pain, a beautiful, strong, and vibrant society was born. The story of Latin America teaches us a powerful lesson about resilience. It shows us that even after the darkest nights of conquest, slavery, and war, the human spirit can survive. When different cultures collide, they can cause terrible pain, but over time, they can also blend together to create a beautiful new identity. Latin America teaches us to celebrate our roots, keep fighting for fairness, and always find a reason to dance and sing, no matter how hard life gets.